Welcome back to Module 3 of EDD 811, Assessment and Data-Driven Decision Making. This module focuses on assessment and improvement science. Welcome back to Module 3 of Assessment and Data-Driven Decision Making. This module focuses on assessment and improvement science. A quick glance at the week reveals that the module has several major learning objectives, primarily focusing on understanding improvement science, the role of assessment in improvement science, operationalizing measures and assessment, as well as really understanding principles and propositions for improvement science. You have a video to watch this week that will reinforce some of the learning, a reading that really aligns perfectly with one of the chapters, and then a discussion board that's going to give you an opportunity to think through Parallel's 2013 propositions, 7 propositions, and then an assignment around operationalizing measures. The first week, we offered a working definition of the term assessment, a systematic process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data to inform decisions, improving policies, practices, and programs. And then we came back in Module 2 to really offer up a working definition of evaluation as a systematic process for making judgments about the quality, effectiveness, or value of a program or intervention. Whereas assessment really is about improving quality, evaluation is more about judging quality. And this week we want to add into the fold a working definition of the term improvement science. It's a methodological framework that is really undergirded by foundational principles that guide scholar practitioners to define problems, understand how the system produces the problems, identify changes that hold promise for rectifying or addressing the problem, and then testing the efficacy of those changes, and then ultimately manufacturing or scaling those changes to other contexts and systems. Again, improvement science really is a systematic approach to continuous improvement in complex organizations that's really guided by 3 questions. 1, what is the exact problem that we're trying to solve? What change might we introduce to solve it? And how will we know that the change, in fact, represents an improvement? There are several principles for maximizing improvement efforts that's reviewed in this week's reading. One is knowing why you need to improve. That's that focused aim that is so critical to successful improvement processes. Having a feedback mechanism to tell you if the improvements are actually occurring. Developing effective ideas for changes that will result in improvement. This really gets at the heart of innovation, creativity, and the kind of collaborative discussions that give rise to creative, and plausible solutions, which is why so much of change efforts and improvement science is done in community with others, especially inclusive environments and inclusive communities where people can show up their authentic selves and share their perspective, insights, and ideas. And then lastly, one of the principles really refers to knowing when and how to make changes sustainable through effective implementation to integrate the changes in the system of interest, so that we're not just sort of tinkering at the edges, but we're making changes within the system that are sustainable, they are durable, and will not only last in scale, but sort of have that kind of lasting impact on the problem we're addressing. In this week's reading, we come across a quote that I call out: although change will not always result in improvement, all improvement requires change. That there are some things that we can change in organizations that may not lead to improvement. They may actually cause the problem to exacerbate or not address the problem at all. So, for instance, during the pandemic, I served as chief academic officer at my institution, and had an opportunity to work with the deans and department chairs on considering, like most other institutions during the pandemic, considering our grading scale and whether or not we wanted to have a modified grading scale during the sort of height of the pandemic. We decided to go with a modified grading scale, which meant that the range for an A that is normally something like 94 to 100 might have gone from 90 to 100, a bit wider. And that this sort of what we call an emergency grading scale stayed in effect throughout the pandemic. And while it seemed to address the problem that we were trying to target, and that is we didn't want students' grades to slip and for academic performance to slip because we were sort of moving and leading, teaching and learning through this new medium called remote and virtual learning. Ours was powered through Zoom and Microsoft Teams. We also had not really integrated our learning management system very well, so we didn't want students to suffer academically as a result of that. And so the emergency grading scale was a change that was designed to address that problem and to seek improvement. Now, what we learned is that while grades didn't slip, we did have some significant loss in terms of attendance because now students are learning through this new medium. Faculty have a whole new strategy or practice they have to develop for how do you take attendance in virtual online spaces. And so while we saw improvements in one area, we saw slippage and change in another. Overall, it just reflects the essence of this quote that all change doesn't result in improvement, but improvement does in fact require changes. This week you will read both in the book chapter, textbook chapter, as well as in the supplemental reading about Parallel's 7 propositions. And they are shown on the screen, some of which include the science of improvement is grounded in testing and learning cycles. This really is at the heart of the plan, do, study, and act, the PDSA framework, that the science of improvement considers the context of justification and discovery, as well as a combination of psychology and logic. And then important for this week's assignment and discussion board form, the science of improvement really does require the use of operational definitions. Theory of cause systems and is informed by systems theory. So now I'd encourage you to click pause on the video and run over to the overview for this module 3 and watch the Improvement Science Introduction to the 6 Core Principles video. Okay, hopefully you had time to watch the video, take some good notes. In addition to the things we've already covered in this week's module, we spend time talking about the operationalization or operationalizing measures in assessment work. And some key insights here are: one, if you're going to operationalize measures, you do need to define clear metrics and indicators. That is, establishing specific quantifiable metrics and indicators to measure the success of your assessment objectives. That in assessment work, especially in education, we often are talking about phenomena, social observations, and outcomes that are very difficult to measure. Things like sense of belonging, engagement, involvement, achievement, proficiency, that on their own sort of suggest a certain direction of the improvement, the change improvement, but doesn't necessarily offer quantifiable and specific metrics for assessing performance, improvement, and success. So in this case, you typically need something like a benchmark or other criteria that are relevant and actionable. That's what operationalizing measures is really all about. And that while doing that, you also want to give thought to standardization of these methods for collecting these data, some sort of period or plan for collecting these data, making sure that they are accurate and reliable and comparable over time, and then integrating this all into a feedback loop so that you can create mechanisms for regular review and analysis of collecting data to identify trends and gaps in areas in need of adjustment, revision, or improvement. So I want to close with a quick extended example. I said as a chief academic officer, one other example that I worked with my team on is we set a division-wide goal of academic excellence in keeping with the university's strategic goals around academic excellence, student success, brand prestige, and the like. So our divisional goals were aligned with the university goals. But as we thought about academic excellence in the context of academic affairs, we realized while it is a very common term that's used in academic settings, it is quite nebulous and needs some more specificity. So we worked as a team to develop multi-level measures or metrics across this for assessment in the way of academic programs, faculty, staff, and students. For instance, academic programs, we operationalize academic excellence to mean that we have academic programs that are high in demand in the market, academic programs that are accredited by regional or professional accrediting bodies, as well as academic programs that are recruiting healthy and stable enrollments over time. Three measures that could easily be quantifiable and tracked. Another quick example of this is that for faculty, we operationalize academic excellence as having faculty on our staff who have an earned terminal degree, who have published research and or high quality courses and curriculum developed, as well as faculty who are engaged in professional service, journal boards, and editorialships. If you're looking for more information for this unit, check out Module 3 in Canvas, the module readings, the video, the textbook, and as always, you can reach out to your instructor for more. Take care.